Members of Congress are cashing in on war, both the war in Ukraine and now the conflict in Israel-Palestine. According to Unusual Wales Politics, which keeps tabs on congressional trades, lawmakers on Capitol Hill have been purchasing war stocks. Both Republicans and Democrats bought General Dynamics stocks, and while Republicans bought more on the energy and oil front, Democrats poured their money into cybersecurity stocks.
The heavy wartime stock buying didn't just happen following the onset of the war in Ukraine, but there was a surge that hasn't receded. In August, Mississippi Congressman Michael Guest purchased about $15,000 worth of ExxonMobil stock, currently up and trading at $109 per Unusual Wales. Numerous politicians from both sides of the aisle are tailoring their investment portfolios based on these defense contractors and energy companies, all of which lobby Capitol Hill heavily. This is just another reason we really got to ban members of Congress from stock trading, or else how can we trust that their foreign policy decision-making, to the extent Congress exerts any influence or oversight over the foreign policy perspective to begin with, but they might be making decisions that are not in the best interest of U.S. foreign policy or the safety of Americans, but are lining their own pockets.
Absolutely. I mean, really think this through. If you have a number of Congress members on both sides of the aisle who are heavily invested in, let's say, oil energy stocks, ExxonMobil, what are the implications of that, not just with respect to our domestic policy, but some of our foreign policy and our immigration policy? I just recorded an episode on my own podcast that aired today where I talked to an expert about the influx of Venezuelan immigrants and the relationship between U.S. sanctions on Venezuela and the economic conditions in that country that are leading so many people to want to flee. And of course, the oil sector was Venezuela's biggest export. Our sanctions have made it difficult for them to export any oil. They have to import U.S. oil, usually to mix in with their own to make it suitable for export. They aren't able to import parts to fix the technology required to extract their own oil. And other countries that might be willing to trade with them have been threatened from doing so. The U.S. government has said in no uncertain terms, it's either us or them. Do you want to give up that market, or do you want to give us up as a trading partner? Now, if you personally, as someone who benefits from the dominance of U.S. oil, also benefit from sanctions on Ukraine, there are more than one largely conservatives in Congress who are sitting here wanting to weaponize and politicize a crisis that they are profiting from and continuing these sanctions on Venezuela so that they can personally benefit. And this is just a very small wedge of what can be happening here.
Right. And again, that's serving their interests, not serving the interests of the American people.
Yeah.
How the American people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, speak with one voice on wanting gas prices to be lower. We should be buying oil from Venezuela. We should be buying oil wherever it is. We'd be less reliant on this cluster F in the Middle East if we had other places to procure oil from. So yeah, this is politicians in both parties are often backwards on this for various reasons, but it's like, I'm not about forcing us to have some industrial base of oil or anything else in the U.S. Again, that's what the political figures want because they're benefiting from it. But the American people just want access to cheaper gas, and that involves. I'm a ruthless free market person. I would we can buy it from Venezuelans. That's fine. The U.S. government is making that difficult. It is making it illegal in some situations to benefit members of Congress who have stock in oil companies.
Yeah, and so that's been an interesting piece of the ongoing drama with Matt Gaetz in the House, which is that Ro Khanna proposed a series of reforms at the end of last week, I think it was maybe last Wednesday, that Matt Gaetz seems to be open to. He followed up saying, okay, let's negotiate. And one of those reforms included a ban on Congress members from trading stocks or from ever becoming lobbyists. Some other parts of that 5-point plan, including banning money from lobbyists and political action committees to congressional candidates, term limits for Congress, term limits for Supreme Court justices, and an ethics code for Supreme Court justices. And so you're really seeing from this force the vote moment with Matt Gaetz a willingness to bring some of these really important issues to the table that have all of these broad consequences. But the truth is that it's still a narrow slice of electeds, people like Matt Gaetz, Ro Khanna, who has often been out of step with his own party on these issues as well, who are willing to go here and actually do something about it, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans do not want their Congress members to be profiting off of stocks that have serious implications for both foreign and domestic policy.
And look how Matt Gaetz is being treated by the mainstream commentariat, even some conservative commentators, as in the way, as inconvenient, as crazy that he's done something totally insane and unprecedented. In order to advance policies, some of the policies, I don't agree with every policy he's probably trying to get achieved everywhere, but mostly he's making a stand about funding for Ukraine that is clearly popular. That's what Republicans actually want. It's what they want their leaders to do, is to rein in some of this spending for every other nation on earth. And he took a stand on that, and he wants to stop on the stock front, something that you could poll Americans. It's just overwhelmingly popular. That's what they want, and he's being treated like he's a procedurally crazy person for trying to get those policies. Right now, they're saying he's in the way of sending even more money abroad to Israel, and isn't it horrible what he did? Like, again, I could be wrong. I don't think the American people think that's so crazy to take a minute and wait and think. And we don't have to rush our own political process because there was some crisis somewhere else. That doesn't mean we're not sympathetic. That doesn't mean we're not going to condemn horrible violence and illegal actions and all of that. Doesn't mean our leaders don't have to be concerned about it. But we don't need to. We don't need to rush a political process because Americans here, they care about what's going on here.
Matt Gaetz called out corruption on the floor of the House, and he was booed.
Yeah.
He was booed by his own colleagues. I mean,
well, they hate the guy.
That's what happened.
And they love
specifically,
corruption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He stood there and he called out corruption. And they had the audacity to boo. And then the mainstream media covers that as, oh, they're booing McCarthy. They're booing Matt Gaetz. They know that Matt Gaetz is unpopular. He's a crazy man. But I think what the public sees is one person willing to stick his head up and say, actually, corruption is bad. Actually, Congress members shouldn't trade stocks. Actually, they shouldn't be war profiteers.
Right.
And they saw on national television his colleagues booing him for taking that stand that is so strongly aligned with the interests of the American public and the opinions of the American public. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. And I am afraid, but interested to see what ends up happening with the support congressionally for increasing aid to Israel as people increasingly draw comparisons between the stance on Ukraine aid and Israel aid.
And we should just always be suspicious of pundits who are going to say, oh, this is so embarrassing, this is so dysfunctional, what's going on in the House, what Matt Gaetz and the other insurances are doing. So embarrassing, so unprecedented. Okay, but what is precedented is not necessarily good, is not necessarily what the American people want. Like, a lot of people will say the way our government works is dysfunctional for them, is not serving their interests, and is not accomplishing the things that they want. So this is not business as usual. Yes, this was very abnormal, fine, but a lot of people want abnormal because what is normal is not what they say they're voting for.
Yeah.
They're annoyed that they keep being clear about their preferences and not getting what they've asked for.
100%.
Yeah. But oh no, the optics of it's so bad.
Yeah, you don't need me to say Princeton study again. It's going to be the first time this week, or probably about 15 more times. But that 2014 Princeton study that shows there's no relationship between what Congress members vote for, what they put forward from a legislative perspective, and what the average American wants. It's screaming loud today as there's this interest in Congress members literally buying war stocks.
Yeah, please don't. More Rising right after this.